been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business.
Stephen A. Smith brushed off Molly Qerim's sudden departure like it was nobody's business. Yet even he admitted he didn't fully know the story himself. That right there said a lot, because if Stephen A. was out of the loop, something major was going down behind those ESPN walls. In trying to stay neutral, he accidentally exposed something way bigger. ESPN's decision to keep its top star clueless proved that Molly's exit wasn't just business as usual. It was a straight-up cover-up. This wasn't some friendly farewell after a decade of working together. It was a shocking shakeup that nobody saw coming. For over 10 years, Molly and Stephen A. had what looked like perfect chemistry on ESPN's flagship show First Take, until she suddenly walked away on September 15, 2025, effective immediately.
Good morning and welcome to First Take. Normally, our friend Molly Qerim would greet you. However, Molly announced last night she will be departing from ESPN. She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade.
What makes this whole situation even more explosive is what Stephen A. later revealed about why their partnership couldn't continue. And trust me, the truth is way more tangled than anyone could have imagined. Behind those smiling on-screen debates, tension had been boiling for months. Whispers of pay gaps, clashing egos, and what insiders now call a total breakdown in professional trust. The carefully crafted image of a happy team was about to explode in the most public way possible. When Stephen A. spoke on September 16th, his tone seemed genuine. You could feel the emotion. But later that same day, on his Sirius XM show, the mask slipped. He sounded frustrated, confused, and just plain tired of the politics brewing behind the cameras.
Not only did she keep me and many others in line, she did it with dignity, and class, and kindness, to say the least. We'll miss her and wish her every blessing on her future. I personally am grateful to her for her friendship. I will miss spending every weekday morning with her right by my side.
That's when fans started to realize something wasn't adding up. The timeline tells the full story. Less than 24 hours before her last appearance, Molly was still on First Take, smiling like nothing was wrong. Then boom, the Sports Business Journal dropped the bomb that afternoon, revealing she had already turned down ESPN's contract extension and was gone for good.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
What Stephen A. revealed on his radio show later that day showed just how blindsided everyone really was by Molly's sudden exit. His voice carried this uneasy tone, like even he knew there was something deeper going on, something no one wanted to say out loud. You could almost feel the tension bleeding through every word he spoke, and that phrase, abruptly resigned, is doing all the heavy lifting here.
We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years, and a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details. There was a contract negotiation that was going on.
This wasn't some slow fade or planned career shift. This was a straight-up shock move. Sudden, cold, and awkward for everyone in the building. ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, later admitted that when Sports Business Journal leaked the story early, it threw the whole network into chaos. Before they could even craft a statement, the news was out. And at that point, there was no going back. The damage was already done, and any chance of them working together again was officially over. Then came Stephen A.'s viral line, "The details are none of y'all business," immediately followed by, "But it's not as if I know all the details." That contradiction? Wild. He was trying to protect the story while basically admitting he'd been locked out of it himself. The man who knew everything suddenly knew nothing.
ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately. As you see from her Instagram post, her Instagram story last night, after much reflection, I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter and step away from First Take.
Molly confirmed her exit in an Instagram story, writing, "After much reflection, I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter and step away from First Take." But what really grabbed people's attention? The fact that she didn't mention Stephen A. at all, not even once. After 10 straight years sitting beside him, that silence spoke louder than any farewell speech could. Former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley jumped on his podcast, pointing out that the omission had to be deliberate and probably personal. Now, let's talk money, because that's where things get wild. Stephen A. bagged a 5-year, $100 million deal in March 2025, locking in a jaw-dropping $20 million per year. Meanwhile, Molly's paycheck? Barely $500,000 to $600,000. That means he was earning nearly 40 times more than the woman sharing the same spotlight. Despite both of them being the backbone of First Take's success, Molly Qerim was nowhere near treated like an equal. She hosted ESPN's top-rated show every single weekday morning for a whole decade. 10 straight years of running the set, keeping fiery personalities in check, and turning chaos into watchable gold. She was the calm in the storm, holding her own against some of the biggest egos in sports TV. And still, her paycheck didn't even come close to matching her male counterparts. The pay gap between Molly and Stephen A. Smith wasn't just unfair, it was outrageous. When you stack her salary next to the other men at ESPN, it gets even worse. Kirk Herbstreit, pulling in $18 million a year. Mike Greenberg, sitting pretty at $6.5 million hosting Get Up. Even the guys over at Pardon the Interruption were banking $6 million each. Meanwhile, Molly, who carried First Take every morning, was taking home less than $600,000. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon. But here's where the story twists.
This is darker last week for this lighter today. Way to go, Mollywood. This is Mollywood. Hell with Hollywood. We in Mollywood now.
Just hours after Molly's departure became public on September 16, 2025, ESPN proudly announced that Malika Andrews had signed a multi-year extension reportedly worth millions, far more than what Molly was making. Talk about timing. It painted a brutal picture. One woman exits undervalued, another gets a major payday. Former analyst Marcellus Wiley broke it down perfectly on his podcast, saying Molly had watched these new deals unfold, saw younger talent getting richer contracts, and finally said, "Enough is enough." According to Wiley, she went to ESPN demanding a raise that actually reflected her decade of dedication.
What is that? I mean, what is that? I understand the UConn fandom and all of this other stuff, that's your alumni, but the nerve to show up to work dressed like that. Ladies and gentlemen, she has not lived up to the standard that has been set right here on First Take.
But what she got instead was an insulting lowball offer. He described it as straight disrespect, and honestly, that might not even cover it. Now, here's where Stephen A.'s role becomes both powerful and problematic. With his $20 million salary and his massive pull inside ESPN, he could have easily pushed for her to get fairer pay, but reportedly, he stayed silent. That alleged lack of support from her co-host of 10 years, that might have been the moment everything broke.
How dare you with this stuff? I gotta call RC. I gotta get Ryan Clark to get you a wardrobe malfunction. So, do I need to put the sweater, the jacket off?
Oh yeah, show a little shoulder. Let's get
the one shoulder. It's a style, Stephen A. It's a style.
Let's get the ratings up when you show a little shoulder.
Not long after, word leaked that Fox Sports had swooped in with a huge offer, around $2 million per year, nearly 4 times her ESPN salary. If true, that means Fox saw her worth in a way ESPN never did. And while fans loved the chemistry between Molly and Stephen A. on camera, some insiders whispered that maybe, just maybe, their personal closeness had blurred the professional lines too much. When it came to demanding fair treatment, the truth behind the scenes was messier than anyone wanted to admit. To really understand why Stephen A. Smith and Molly Qerim's partnership fell apart, You've got to look at the long trail of uncomfortable moments that built up during their 10-year run on First Take. What seemed like a fun, energetic on-screen duo was actually holding together by threads, and tension was quietly growing behind the smiles. Sure, the pay gap was a massive issue, but money was only part of the story. Their professional chemistry had always been complicated, balance between friendly energy and something that sometimes went too far, crossing invisible lines that made not only viewers uneasy, but possibly even Molly herself. Fans online noticed it, and they weren't afraid to call it out. Over the years, Stephen A. dropped comments about Molly's looks that left people talking. Some viewers brushed them off as just jokes, but others questioned whether that kind of banter belonged on live TV at all. Because while he was laughing, she often looked stuck, forced to play along just to keep the show moving. Those moments of playful teasing weren't harmless. They put her in a tight spot, having to act cool while being objectified right in front of millions. One particular moment that fans still remember, that little shoulder comment Stephen made on air, it might have seemed lighthearted, but it highlighted exactly the kind of workplace behavior that's now under serious scrutiny. The show's easygoing tone sometimes blurred boundaries that should have stayed crystal clear. Then came that infamous vibrating phone moment in October 2023, the one that went viral instantly.
Well, right around this time, the middle of 2019, you're on ESPN. And Molly, keep mispronouncing it, Molly Qerim?
Who cares what her last name is?
Okay.
But anyway, the lady crazy.
When Molly's phone buzzed mid-segment, Stephen A. repeated the word vibrating again and again with that smirk, turning a harmless situation into something awkward and inappropriate. You could literally see Molly trying to keep her composure while the internet turned the clip into a circus. Moments like those didn't just make for cringeworthy television, they shaped an environment where Molly was treated as the spectacle instead of the star. Her professionalism stayed solid, but the respect she deserved? That was fading fast. When it came down to contract negotiations, that long-standing imbalance between Stephen A. Smith and Molly Qerim may have played a major role in how her value was judged. According to insiders and former ESPN staff, people behind the scenes could feel the tension growing. Creative clashes, silent frustrations, and whispers about the show's future direction were bubbling under the surface.
And nobody said nothing, because this is what her mind is in the gutter, thinking that every man want her.
Yeah.
To me, she looked like witchy poo. That's not a good looking woman to me.
By this point, Stephen A.'s influence at ESPN was colossal. He wasn't just a face of First Take, he was practically running it. With his $20 million salary came power, real power, the kind that let him shape the show's content, handpick guests, and even weigh in on who got hired or promoted. That kind of dominance changed everything, including how he related to people he'd worked with for years, especially Molly. On his podcast, Marcellus Wiley dropped a bombshell theory that Molly felt completely alone at the negotiating table. After 10 years beside him, she expected Stephen A. to back her up, to use his status to demand she get paid what she was worth. But according to Wiley, that support never came, and that silence cut deep. For someone she'd shared a decade of camera time with, it wasn't just disappointing, it was personal. Her Instagram farewell post said a lot without saying much at all. She thanked the most brilliant, passionate, and entertaining voices in sports, but never once mentioned Stephen A. by name. That omission didn't go unnoticed. Fans, journalists, even other ESPN hosts picked up on it instantly. After hundreds of early mornings together, that cold silence spoke louder than any goodbye message ever could.
Hosting this show has been one of the greatest honors of my career. To be blunt, it came as a shock. I was not aware that this is something that she was contemplating doing. But in the end, she made her decision. And we have to move on as a show.
Behind the corporate spin, ESPN was dealing with serious money pressure. Competing with streaming platforms and rival networks meant they had to make harsh choices about who to keep and how much to pay them. The math was simple but brutal. If one person's pulling $20 million a year, everyone else is going to feel the squeeze. And that everyone else included Molly Qerim. The message was clear. Stephen A. was the franchise, and everyone else was just part of the set dressing. But there was another layer, the history of awkward, controversial on-air moments that had never fully gone away. One of the most infamous came back in 2019 when guest LeVar Ball responded to Molly's attempt to steer the conversation by saying, "You can switch gears with me anytime." The clip went viral instantly, blowing up across social media as fans called it out for what it was, a blatant sexual innuendo on live TV. ESPN later banned Ball from appearing again, but the moment stuck in people's minds and followed Molly for years. Who cares what her last name is? Anyway, the lady crazy. That was LeVar Ball's dismissive reaction after being called out. A shocking response that perfectly exposed what female hosts like Molly Qerim have to deal with in live TV environments. His words weren't just rude, they showed how hard it can be for women in sports media to maintain boundaries when men on air think disrespect is a punchline. And then there was the moment he threw out, "That's not a good-looking woman to me," completely out of pocket. Comments like that built up over time, creating a pattern where Molly constantly had to defend her professionalism against male guests who couldn't seem to grasp basic respect.
Stephen A., we're going to a boxing gym. You know how you said it? I'm going to swear for the first time on TV, and I will bust your ass, okay? Because I've seen you with the busted shoulder, because I can throw them things.
Every time something like this happened, the same question echoed. Did Stephen A. Smith really have her back? Or did he stay silent and leave her standing alone in those moments? Many fans and insiders believe that silence said everything. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, tried to frame the entire situation as just a normal business decision. In interviews, he insisted the network wanted to keep Molly, saying they'd been exploring new opportunities for her within ESPN. He made it sound smooth and simple, but that explanation left everyone scratching their heads. Because if ESPN truly valued Molly, why couldn't they pay her what she deserved? Why move her off First Take instead of elevating her, especially when she'd spent years being the glue that held the show together? It didn't add up, and the more people looked into ESPN's salary structure, the more they noticed a troubling trend. Women being consistently underpaid compared to their male counterparts, even when doing similar or identical jobs.
I don't like it. I'm not happy about it because I appreciate her and what she has meant to me, what she has meant to the show, what she has meant to the network, what she's meant to the business. And I'm going to miss her. It's just that simple.
Molly's story became the biggest example of that imbalance. And what made it sting even more was the irony. First Take reached its peak success under her moderation. She was the one who managed clashing personalities, kept chaotic debates under control, and gave the show its polished flow. Her sharp timing and calm professionalism turned potential train wrecks into viral TV gold. Yet despite all that, her paycheck told a different story. The network's actions made it clear they viewed her as replaceable, a supporting act next to Stephen A., rather than the equal force she truly was. And just to twist the knife deeper, hours after Molly's exit became official, ESPN proudly announced Malika Andrews' brand new multi-million-dollar extension. It sent a clear message. ESPN was willing to invest in new female talent, but not necessarily reward the women who had already built the empire from the ground up. And while Stephen A.'s first public comments about Molly were polished and respectful, his tone shifted later on his radio show, suddenly revealing frustration, defensiveness, and a hint that the story was far from over.
But we all make decisions that we deem to be in our best interest, for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell.
Stephen A. Smith's insistence that Molly Qerim's exit came as a total shock revealed something deeper than surprise. It hinted at a breakdown in trust. Either the lines of communication had completely collapsed, or Molly had made a conscious choice to keep her plans hidden, even from her longtime co-host. Either way, that silence spoke volumes about just how strained their relationship had become behind the cameras. When news broke, social media went wild. Fans and insiders alike began questioning Stephen A.'s role in all of it. Was he really blindsided, or was that just what he wanted people to believe?
But I do think it's important that I started off the show by just acknowledging my love and appreciation for her and what she's meant to me and what she's meant to the show. Because over the years, over the last decade or so, the things that we've accomplished, she was right there.
Many users speculated online, asking why he hadn't publicly supported Molly during her contract battle. Some even accused him of standing by quietly while she fought alone. The internet had questions, and none of them made him look good. Those conversations quickly turned into something bigger, a public debate about workplace allyship and responsibility. When someone's pulling $20 million a year, do they have a duty to speak up for others, especially their longtime coworkers? The silence from ESPN and Stephen A. only made people wonder if the network was protecting its star instead of addressing real issues of fairness and respect.
It is not classy when ladies curse.
God.
I'll see you in the gym, Stephen A.
Mama Qerim.
Squat
Get
rack.
her.
Let's go.
Talking to me that way. Mama Qerim. Get her.
By September 2025, it was clear the First Take partnership that had dominated sports TV for a decade was done for good. Whether the split was about money, power, respect, or all three, the dynamic between Stephen A. and Molly had cracked beyond repair. What had once looked like professional chemistry now appeared to be a working relationship strained by ego and imbalance. The fallout didn't just affect one show, it exposed something much bigger about the sports media world. Molly's departure pulled back the curtain on how networks treat women in powerful roles and how pay inequity still shapes who gets to stay and who gets pushed out. Fans saw it as proof that even the most visible women in media still face uphill battles in male-dominated spaces. In the weeks after her exit, ESPN wasted no time scrambling to replace her. They announced a 30 to 45-day on-air trial period with several potential hosts rotating through First Take. Names like Shea Pepler-Cornett and Christine Williamson popped up immediately, and people noticed how fast the network was moving, almost like they wanted to prove that nobody, not even Molly Qerim, was too important to replace. But that urgency clashed with how ESPN treated Stephen A., whose $20 million deal made it crystal clear he was irreplaceable. And that contrast didn't go unnoticed. Clips resurfaced online showing Molly holding her ground against Stephen A.'s intense on-air jabs, moments fans once saw as entertaining, but that now looked like hints of deeper friction. And just as the drama peaked, reports surfaced that Fox Sports had stepped in with a massive offer, around $2 million a year, nearly 4 times her ESPN salary. If that's true, it means Fox saw the star ESPN took for granted and paid her like she deserved. Stephen A. Smith's reaction to all the noise surrounding Molly Qerim's exit was surprisingly calm, maybe too calm. Outside of his first few statements, he kept quiet, dodging questions and refusing to dive into details. But that silence only fueled the fire, leaving fans and media critics to fill in the blanks themselves, and the speculation turned ruthless fast. His emotion in that first response seemed real, but what came after was just as telling. Absolutely nothing. No push for ESPN to fix their offer, no word on the massive pay gap, and no sign he'd used his influence to help Molly get what she deserved. That gap between his warm words and cold inaction created a strange contradiction that made people wonder, was Stephen A. really heartbroken, or just protecting his own position? He praised her publicly, sure, but insiders say he didn't fight for her behind closed doors. And that silence hit different once the pay numbers leaked. Stephen A. sitting on $20 million a year while Molly barely cleared $600,000? That became the poster image for the gender pay gap in sports broadcasting. And the wild part? Molly wasn't a rookie. She'd been at ESPN for 19 years, a decade of that spent hosting First Take, the network's top daily show. So if someone that accomplished still couldn't get a fair paycheck, what did that say about ESPN's idea of equity? Viewers started asking the hard questions. Who decides what work is worth? Why is the person steering the debate, keeping the chaos under control, valued less than the one shouting over everyone? Both roles are crucial, yet ESPN's pay structure made it crystal clear who they thought mattered more. Stephen's own behavior added layers to the mystery. His perfectly worded statements sounded polished, but fans could sense he was holding back. Was he protecting Molly's privacy or avoiding any talk that could expose his own role in how things fell apart? No one could say for sure, but the lack of clarity kept the controversy alive. And that's where his position gets complicated. On one hand, he's an employee. He's got his own career to safeguard. But on the other, his salary and influence gave him a kind of power very few at ESPN had. He could have pushed harder for her, maybe even changed the outcome. If the reports are accurate, though, his choice to stay quiet became a missed chance for real allyship. Everyone knew Molly had been there for all the wins, every record-breaking rating, every viral debate, every milestone that made First Take a household name. Yet despite standing right beside Stephen A. through it all, her paycheck never even scratched the surface of his. That imbalance became the perfect case study in how female talent gets undervalued, no matter how proven or professional they are. The harsh truth: Molly had to walk away from the very empire she helped build. Not because she failed, but because she refused to accept crumbs while someone else feasted off her labor. ESPN's decision not to even offer a fair counter screamed louder than any press release could. They could have tripled her pay to $2 million a year, and she still would have made just 10% of Stephen A.'s salary. The math was brutal, and fans knew it. So, what does that say about ESPN's priorities? Was her role truly replaceable? Or was this just corporate arrogance at its peak? The answer will come with whoever replaces her. Will they get paid more? Or will ESPN expect another woman to settle for less? That will show whether the network actually learned anything from losing her. Looking back, those fiery on-air moments between Molly and Stephen A. hit differently now. What used to look like fun TV banter might have been her subtle way of standing up for herself. A professional drawing boundaries while pretending to play along. In the end, her exit became bigger than a contract story. It was a mirror reflecting everything broken about sports media: unfair pay, power imbalances, and selective loyalty. Molly Qerim's decade of excellence deserved recognition, not underpayment and silence. Stephen A. Smith's role, both in what he said and what he didn't say, will forever be part of his ESPN legacy. Could he have done more? Absolutely. Should he have used his platform to push for fairness? Without question, but he chose to stay quiet, and that silence will always follow him. At its core, this story isn't just about two coworkers. It's about how power defines value, and how silence from the top lets inequality keep winning. Molly's journey stands as a reminder that even when you build the biggest show in the game, sometimes walking away is the only way to be heard. Her departure didn't just close a chapter, it sparked a bigger conversation about respect, recognition, and equality in media that still hasn't died down. So what do you think? Did Stephen A. do enough, or did he play it safe to protect his empire? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Catch you in the next one, because this story's impact isn't over yet.